Hello, Dragon Ball Super family. I'm Legends Michael Kerrick of Faux X PPG, and this weekend I played at the Tampa-Con PPG 1K event for DBS. It's probably the last tournament of this format before Zenkai joins the game. I definitely wanted to play one last format uh, for this, or one last tournament for this format because I never got the chance to play Gamma. I never really took the chance to play Gamma, and so I did take Gamma this weekend. I placed third. I went undefeated in Swiss, tying one of my rounds versus Yellow Turtles, and then in Top Cut, I lost to U7 in semis. I sided poorly, and we'll talk about that matchup later. But throughout the tournament, I played a hand-controlled deck, King Cold. I played two yellow trunks, a Turtles, a GT Goku, and I feel like there's something else, but I just can't recall. But yeah, let's talk about the deck real quick. So Gamma for this entire format has been my pick for strongest deck in the format. I've been saying it, I just hadn't been playing it. It reminds me of like a blue version of King Piccolo. On the front side, it's got this auto when this card attacks, draw a card. It's a very simple auto. It's like the very least you can ask for any leader from Bandai. And then its awakening is when your life is at 4 or less, or you have a blue unison a specified cost of 2 in play, you may draw one card and then untap one and then add cards from your life to your hand until you have 6 cards left, which is actually really good. Both sides have this permanent where you can't use non-Red Ribbon Army cards, skills to place cards in your energy. So that locks you out of like ramping with Xeno Unison or using the Android 18 from like set 8 to put cards back in your energy. Once you awaken though, your backside becomes unbelievably powerful, assuming you have 3 energy. Your auto now is whenever a blue card is played from your energy, you can place the top card of your deck into your energy in rest mode. This is awesome because unlike the Android 16 leader, this is not once per turn. And then furthermore, it gains the end step auto where you can add 3 blue Android cards from your energy to your hand at the end of your turn. Then you'll draw one card if you do, and then you can place any number of blue Android cards from your hand into your energy and back into your energy, up to 3, of course. And then if you do trigger this effect during your opponent's next turn, you can't use the skills of non-Android battle cards of 7 or less on your opponent's turn. So pretty much limits you just to Baby Hatch or SCRs on your opponent's turn. So I will go through the deck and in kind of like mulligan order and talk about some of the decisions I made for this deck. I'm sure you all have seen many deck profiles for this deck by now. The only searcher I played for the deck, like from the early game searcher, is this Android 14 and 15. They're a simple discard this card limit once per turn. And then you go look at the top 5 for any red ribbon card, energy 5 cost or less, or your unison, your 2-drop unison. So this pretty much searches any red ribbon card in your deck. Searches for the super combos I'm running, allows you to search the super combos, allows you to search, of course, any of your engine pieces, and most importantly, your super combo. Not most importantly, your super combo, sorry. Most importantly, your unison. For your opening mulligan, you do want to see at least one of these in your mulligan. You'll keep it whether you have the unison or not, because unison does want to have a 5k in the drop to constantly keep comboing with, and of course this is a 0 for 5k. I've never ever actually cast this card before. Some notes in case you do decide to pile this deck later into the next format. This deck does run into the issue of decking out in this format, given just how long these games take. So as the game progresses, it's not always the best idea to keep searching with these unless you really are looking for a super combo or something else. Most of the time you just keep them as discard fodder or a 5k combo. And then off to our 2-drop unison. A lot of people are playing a mixture of this card and the hit unison. I decided to go for a greedy cut. I'm playing 51 cards to limit my deck to the dead draws, and I just played 4 copies of the Android 17 and 18 unison. This unison is unbelievably difficult to remove. It plays for 2, can play for 2 from your energy. I would only suggest doing that if you're on the backside to save some hand count. And then it's got this incredible auto where once per turn, on either player's turn, when the first attack happens, you will plus this unison by 1, and then you'll combo with a 0 for 5 from your drop. Effectively, it comes down with 3 since you immediately attack with it, and then on your opponent's attack, it'll go to 4. And then if you're able to defend it, or your opponent doesn't check it from 4, on your next turn immediately, you can use the -4, which allows you to give it 10k and dual attack. This unison, if it ever made it to 4 back on my turn, I would immediately get the value out of minusing 4 on that turn. Some point during that turn, I would get the dual attack off, just because 25k dual attack is so hard to deal with. Your opponent has to either give you a super combo plus a card, or they just have to take the hit or give you a negate. Either way, it's taking a card. This unison under the dual attack. And of course, the fact that it gives you a free combo on the first attack of your opponents means your opponent's first attack is oftentimes just wasted, whether they're trying to check this card or deal damage to you. So of course, talking about the mulligan, this is the primary card you need to find your mulligan. In my top 4 match, I could not find one of these until like turn 5 or 6 in both games. That definitely contributed to my loss. It was a great game otherwise, but I definitely could have also sided better, and I'll go over what some of those side choices are that could have helped me in that matchup. As for my Android lineup, I play 4 copies of the Android 17 Rebellious. Well, I think he's obviously the better one. I'm sure you've heard many people say this by now, but just a barrier attacker is just so valuable in this game. Battle cards are super easy to remove in this game. Sans attacking, so like most decks try to remove your battle cards just by removal effects, and then they get to swing free attacks at your leader. Given that this guy has barrier, they generally have to dump some of those attacks into this battle card, and since your Android automatically gives you a free combo, this guy, the first attack, once like I said, is null, wasting an opponent's resource every turn. When he's played, he can be played from your energy for 1 energy. And I say he can be because if you tap 1 blue to activate his effect and your opponent responds with a counterplay that would otherwise prevent him from coming into play, you would just resolve the effect by not playing him. It's very important to know. Otherwise, if you do play him, once he is played, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add up to 1 Android to your energy, probably blue Android. I didn't even look. Yeah, 1 blue Android card from your deck to your energy, and then afterwards you must, whether you do that or not, you must place a card from your energy at the bottom of your deck and then shuffle. So if you do miss, that is pretty atrocious. In the match that I lost against in the game, that I lost against Yellow Taurus, I missed on 2 of these effects. That set me behind pretty brutally. But otherwise, I felt like that matchup was pretty positive in this deck's favor. Following next in the Android package, I play 3 copies of Android 18 Rebellious Will. She's like a much worse version of him. Granted, yes, she does offer critical as a keyword skill, but the fact that she doesn't have any protection, no deflect or barrier, means she is affected by like every counterplay in the game. So she rarely actually gets to get her attack off. And then if she does, given that she's only 15k, she's going to eat like 1 card from hand at best. She of course shares all of the rest of her text is the same exact as her brother. She plays from 1 energy. She can play from 1 energy from your energy, and then of course her auto to replace energy on play. Thinking about it now, if I were to play this deck again, I'd probably cut this card down to 2. I really did not want to see this card almost ever. The only time I really wanted to see this card is if I had nothing left to charge, and I was like, dang, I really wish I had a card to charge. But I'd probably play a 4-2 split moving forward. We play 4 copies of the Android 1718 Limitless Energy. It's just your like blue-green check land that can sometimes become a dual attacker and remove a threat that's bigger than or equal to your opponent's energy. So for 1 blue or 1 red, this card can be played from your energy or hand, which some people didn't know. And then when it is played, you can choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards whose energy cost is equal to or greater than their total energy, and you can bottom deck it, which is really good removal for a blue card. Of course, it's a 20k with deflect, so it's very hard to interact with when coming down. Videl's like the one thing that really stops this card. And then the fact that it's dual attack means you're always going to remove either 2 super combos from your opponent's hand or it's going to get a damage. Most of the time, though, you're going to use this card for its removal effect. Like, say you'll play this to remove, I don't know, like the Golden Frieza in U7, or like a Turles from yellow, and then you'll use the dual attack option to clear more cards in your opponent's field. One of the advantages of this deck is that since you're playing all your cards from your energy, your hand size barely dwindles, and you can just out-resource your opponent, like just through sheer force. Like, this deck will out-endure all the other decks. Moving forward, we got 4 copies of Cell Ultimate Bio Android. I see a lot of lists playing 3 copies of this card. I just cannot fathom why. It's a 0 for 5, so it's never really truly dead in your hand. You can't combo it away. It's a easy card to charge when you do draw it, since you can't use it till turn 4. And sometimes I really don't play it till turn 5. It's got deflect, can't really be stopped on counterplay, and it's got dual attack. Just all those keyword skills and all these things combined make it an unbelievably oppressive card. But once I read to you the effects, you'll kind of realize, man, this card is a little too free for this deck. So for 1 blue, 1 green, and 2 colorless energy, you can play this card from your energy or your hand, which once again is unique to the cell and the pair. And then when it is played, you bottom deck all of your opponent's battle cards. Not like with no battle or no level restriction or cost restriction, which is really strong. The only thing it doesn't get by is barrier, which is fine. And then of course, auto once per turn when this card is in a battle or when this card attacks, something like that, and your opponent activates a counter attack skill, they actually have to bottom deck an additional card from their hand. So this card once again just helps you in that resource grinding game where you eventually just outgrind your opponent. Um, and you'll eventually just overwhelm them with resource. And of course, if your opponent doesn't clear this card on their next turn, you just start your next turn by charging and then attacking with this card. And of course, like once again, they're sailed in that same like resource force loop. So that's the whole like Android play from energy package. We're gonna move on to some of our more defensive tools. We've played only 3 copies of Android 18. Let the battle begin. This card's great in that it stops Broly Crown of Retribution from coming out and other very niche cards like Basil. The 15k blocker is not really relevant in this format. So many things can rest that or remove it before it even gets a chance to block. It's actually more relevant as a 15k attacker. Just knowing how the format is and how much free removal there is in the game, I wouldn't like really leave it up as a blocker very often. I would just use it. I would trade it for the value, like where it can attack and then remove another card from your opponent's hand, or like they have to take the life and you progress your game state further. It's as long as you have a unison and your leader's a android or heroine card, this card costs 1 only on your opponent's turn. So if you're playing against Gamma, that's something to note. And then it's got a counterplay any card. If the card being played is cost 4 or less, it's just going to go to the bottom of the deck instead, and then you'll play this card. Like I said, it's a 15k blocker. Not really a great card. It's cool to see it when you're like trying to like for as one of the cards you can pick up at the end of your turn through your leader's effect, but otherwise, it doesn't really make you feel that safe. Probably Blue's MVP card of all time. Majin Buu, Assault of the Agents of Destruction. It's just a fantastic 4-drop unison, and it times perfectly with the 2-drop unison. By the time like you go to turn 3 or you go to like your turn 4, this unison's probably ready to crack. People have probably sunk a lot of attacks and they're trying to keep it checked, so they wasted a bunch of attacks. Or you've already used the dual attack, and then you can just upgrade into your Majin Buu Assault of the Agent of Destruction. Paired with your leader's ability, it actually lets you have 4 energy back on your opponent's turn, which is just an absurd amount of energy to play with. You get to tap out on your turn for all your plays, and then you get to further just untap 4 energy on your opponent's turn. Plus, just the amount of layers of defense this card has on its own is ridiculous. Once you start drawing cards with this card, your hand just becomes aggressively full since you never play anything from your hand, other than like defensive tools that generally replace themselves. My only extra card negate I played was Dirty Burst. This was like a respect choice versus red. It came up oftentimes versus like GT. Won me a couple of my matches versus GT, or a couple games versus GT. It didn't win me any games versus U7. Actually, it ironically cost me my first game. I unnecessarily Dirty Bursted in that matchup. When he played his Vegeta SCR and I had Boo out, I could have just let him. He was going to obviously activate his Vegeta SCR anyway, so I could have held it up as a hard negate for the rest of that turn in which he killed me. So that's something to note. It's also got niche applications in some other matchups, like if the yellow decks are playing the Son Goku deck, or that Son Goku 3-drop, that it's like an 8 Son Goku like quote unquote 3-drop that actually is an 8-drop. You can like Dirty Burst that. It's honestly just like I didn't see any necessary purpose for like D magic since you have infinite energy in this deck already, and then I also didn't want to play any of the Chilled Army reinforcements since most of my games I ended at 6, so that card didn't really do much. Whereas Dirty Burst constantly had value throughout the entire game. Actually, not playing D magic, not playing some of the cards I chose not to play in this deck actually benefited me a lot. Some people cited in like the 1-drop barrier cards, the changing history cards that like kind of like sniped your energy if you tried the D magic. So by not playing that, their side card was worthless. And I also chose, you'll notice later, I also chose not to play an Android 17 Turning the Tide, just because so many people were citing Jiren, and also Turning the Tide just doesn't feel that impactful in this deck. For what you do for 7 mana, you can just do so much more with like a Cell, an Android barrier attacker, an Android dual attacker in this deck, right? And you'll like remove just as much board, and then your opponent's gonna run out of their hand anyway eventually. So yeah, just it was definitely a way to like waste opponent's side slots and like kind of abuse the fact that people are expecting the Android 17 and to bring in the Jiren. And then for my other hard negate in this deck, I play 4 copies of Android 14 and a core. It's effectively just a blue topo. Downside is 15k, so the Vegeta Resolve Renewed or whatever it's called can snipe this card in counterplay, but it can be searched off your Android 17 or 18, so you can like consistently have a topo in your hand. It's kind of what blue has been looking for. Like blue controls the color. It's a generic blue Floodgate I mean, generic in the fact that it only works for Android, but like generic, but also generic in that there's no cost restriction on what it stops your opponent from doing. So it was like a no-brainer for me to play 4. I did side out 1 a lot versus like yellow or red, but I feel like if I played less than that, then I would just run out of tools aside. Um, it's also 15k attacker. Once again, like everything you have on your turn, just attack with. Almost nothing's going to survive on your opponent's turn anyway. I mean, of course, barring like under the effects of some Floodgate that would make you pay a huge tax to attack, I would just attack with everything. If your opponent spends their entire turn attacking your battle cards instead of you, that's like a win already, since all your battle cards came from your energy and none of it costs you handcuffs. So they're spending resources to clear your 0 resources, like your resources that cost 0, and then on your next turn you can play more resources that cost 0 to clear out the resources that actually cost card count. Um, Moving forward, I played a full suite of like pseudo combos, or what I would just call like 10 for 1Ks that also draw a card. Or sorry, 1 for 10Ks that also draw a card. I played the full suite just because like this deck's like defensive comboing was a little weak. You don't really want to combo with the pieces that you're going to charge. Whereas you also just have like a plethora of energy to play with on your opponent's turn. So just like 8 copies of this card meant you could always combo out of everything. People often left attacks at like 20k, and you just get out of them for free. The Beerus secondary effect, where you can bottom deck a 1-drop, was actually relevant versus like U7 or something like a Basil here and there. It like came up really rarely. And then the top effect, where you can clear a bigger battle card, also comes up, since once again you can tap out pretty confidently on your front side. So you can afford to spend the 1 energy to make an attack go through and clear a threat. And then of course at the end of your turn you just reset the energy anyway. So if you were just gonna pick one of them, I'd probably prioritize the Beerus Destroys over the Infernal Villainy Cell. I just also included the Villainy Cell because it was just an additional copy of like the 10k combo. The fact that it was green actually did come up once. I had like 3 mono blue cards, including Cell, my energy going to my turn 4, and my only play coming up was Cell. I was still digging for the blue-green Android card, and I had this card in hand. I still didn't draw it off return, so I just charged this card for green and then tapped all 4 to play Cell. So it does come up, the fact that it's green, and then later you'll shuffle it away with like one of your Android effects, and then hopefully find it again for a comboing effect. And also, the 8 copies of this gets you out of your early game. One of Gamma's weaknesses is getting aggroed early game. So, like, since you'll notice I didn't have a turn 1 play in the deck, this can effectively function as my turn 1 play. If my opponent attempted to push me past 6 life turn 1, I could just use one of these on their 3rd attack, and then that'll get me out of the turn 1 attacks. And then, of course, there's those Saiyan Scion decks that like go for Scion to ping you for 4 life right away. The Beerus immediately cuts that play because you'll take the leader, and then you'll take the unison. And then when they go for the 2 smaller dudes, you'll combo out of one of them using this and bottom deck the other one, and that whole play is over, and you're still at 6 life. So it's a really powerful card to use in this deck. For my super combo split, I played 1 draw super combo and then 3 untapped super combos. This was ultimately a choice only because I wanted to be able to search my super combos off of the Android 14 and 15 if I needed them. Also to make it so these were harder to miss with. I kind of regret this decision. If I were to play this deck again moving forward, I'd probably replace 1 or 2 of these untapped combos with either another draw super combo or just like the Bionic Blitz where it bottom decks your opponent. I found that there was a lot of times where I was forced to super combo to get out of a nasty attack, but then I couldn't get any value out of the untap. So that was really unfortunate. And thinking about it now, like the untap is supposed to synergize with these like pseudo combos, and then like eventually your negates if you had to get to it, but it really only synergized with the pseudo combos. There's a couple times where I did combo up to atrocious numbers like 110k because of all the untapping and came out of like a game-ending attack or something like that. But other than that, these weren't that great. Honestly, the Bionic Blitz would be a lot better in some ratio. And then for some other flex cards, I played 2 Senzu Beans. It's like the standard for this deck. You can choose to play 3 or 4, but it's just like the Senzu Bean doesn't really have that great of an impact. Like defensively, your opponent's going to go after your battle cards more often, so you don't really have a good Senzu Bean target. And then offensively, you only have a couple dual attackers, and with so much like Release from Evil and Time Magic running around, your dual attackers barely ever get to get their second attack off, so Senzu Bean almost never comes up. I played 1 copy of Scientist Fu as my overrealm. Yes, I did ramp into it a couple times with my androids. when I played from Energy, and yes, that was a bummer, but it's still like a necessary risk. It's just like this card is infinite value, especially in this deck, since you get to pick up the energy anyway, so you're not like risking anything when you go for this play. It's straight up just like a pot of greed that like forces a negate out of your opponent's hand, or like a fancy double strike to clear something or go for game. And then an off chance, if you don't kill them, you have like 2 extra cards in your opponent, and you get to pick up the energy and reset it anyway. So this card is ridiculous in this deck. It's auto include as the overroam. And then finally, of course, Baby Hatchiyak is the SCR of the deck. I like with that new Goku SCR coming out of Zenkai. I don't think I'm gonna like substitute that in for Baby Hatchiyak. It just seems obvious that Baby Hatchiyak buying you an extra turn to sell them again seems just to be the most powerful thing. Like all the effects that play from energy in this deck are limit 1 anyway. So like playing that new Goku SCR would only allow you to like refresh your energy to play some Zenkai cards, maybe a unison. I don't know, it just doesn't seem that great. Whereas Baby Hatch literally buying the turn back seems kind of ridiculous in this deck. That was the main deck. Like I said, it was 51 cards. You heard about some of the things I would change. We'll quickly go over the side deck. I brought a Chill's Army reinforcement token without even playing the extra card. It was kind of just a divider, so ignore that. I played an extra copy of Dirty Burst. For like red decks, U7, and then of course if I played against like a SS3 Gogeta, the 8 drop that attacked 3 times and warped your hand. Like very niche matchups where this card comes up. Just the third copy. Something to note to make it easier to side and like kind of like track your own stats when you're playing the game. When you're siding extra copies of cards that are in your main deck, try to look for a different art. There's some argument in both like for both sides, right? Like if you're afraid of people hand peeking you and like tracking what's in your hand, you should play the same art. But like if you really want to keep track of how often this third Dirty Burst comes up or whatever card you're trying to play, you should try the different art technique to see like how much it actually mattered. And this third one actually came up quite often after post siding, saved me in a lot of games. I played 4 Dendays, new to the job. This is obviously a snipe the mirror match. Ironically, I was the only Gambit player at the event, so this never came up. I played 1 copy of Android 15 Inorganic Horror, once again to snipe the mirror match to stop the topo. This never came up because it's bad versus Ripos, since that card only costs 1 energy, and I never played the mirror. I played 1 copy of Trunks God Sealing Technique for the same exact reason. It's just for the mirror match. It's like another copy of this that costs 0 for the mirror match. This one is searchable, this one's not, but you can just draw 1 and then you're happy. You don't want to draw 2, so that's why I only played 1 copy of it. Once again, never played the mirror match. I played 1 copy of Absolute Confidence. I probably moved this card into the main deck, actually. This card's like one of the most ridiculous cards for the deck. And I'll explain why. So, like, originally it was in this deck for, like, unison-based strategies, like Drip Coup, King Cold, Cooler. Some unison, like, triple strike-based strategy, right? I brought it in versus, like, the Jiren hand control deck that also had that Frieza that goes in the triple strike. And, of course, that's, like, its generic use, right? But it also prevents, like, battle cards of 3 or less from killing you as an activate battle trick, and you draw a card. So, like, if you really think about it, a lot of decks can really only afford to take you down to 2, right? Like I lost to U7 both times because he took me down to 3 early game. Then he Vegeta SCR'd me down to 2. And then he like relied on going all in with the Champa with his leader or his unison, right? And the only defense I could even muster on my turn, since it was such early turn, was like a Buu unison. So obviously you could use Buu unison to block one of them, but then you're stuck dealing with the other, right? Most people feel really safe going all in on a unison. So with the copy of Absolute Confidence in the main, or just siding it in versus like almost every matchup, you can afford to use your Buu unison pretty willy-nilly on the leader swing to block the leader swing, and then when they go in on the unison, you can let them dump into Champa, and then you can Absolute Confidence to just take the 1 damage and move on with the game, win the game from there. Additionally, like versus U7, they can go all in on the Android 17 double strike, and you can mid-combat bounce it back to hand. There's a lot of tricks you can do with this card, and I think it's just like, since you have so much energy to play with in this deck, 2 energy for a draw card and then prevent your death seems like pretty easy to access in this deck, so I think I will definitely play 1 copy of this in the main moving forward. Played 2 copies of Saiyan Instincts for those hand control decks. I decided to respect hand control, and boy did it pay dividends, because I played against a King Cold and a hand control deck, like a pure hand control deck, and it definitely came up a couple times. Also, I guess in the matchups where like the games do drag on really long, this card would be really good, especially given that I don't play Android 17. It's obviously a good discard target for your topo. Play 2 copies of SS Gotenks Absolute Unison. This card is strictly just like a yellow respect card. It's -3, allowing you to bottom deck 2 cards with barrier. Allows you to get rid of the Trunks blockers, the SS Goku Annihilation, or the Slug and or the slug, right? Like whichever two threats you deem are most necessary. And then of course it's a dual attacker, so dealing like swinging twice for 20k is no joke in this format as well. If it comes down on 4, of course your leader picks up 3 energy, so it doesn't matter what it comes down for. I never got to use the draw 2 effect of it, but like I said, it was just a yellow respect card. And of course that helped me in my Jiren matchup because he relies on a barrier card. I played 2 copies of Koitsukai. I just didn't have 2 matching copies readily available, so I ended up having to do this. It's another great discard target for Topo, the blue Topo. It's good against yellow. It's good against like King Piccolo. It's good against like Cooler Mill, just like those niche decks that love to play on your turn. This is just a really good card for that. For just like launch and stuff, you can really use it in those matchups. So there's something to consider. It's also good versus King Cold because like it not only does it make them not want to use the Frieza, but it also makes them not want to use the Homicidal Clones to negate. So just something to consider. And then, of course, my final card was 1 copy to Kami Global Unifier. Games versus Yellow Trunks just tend to drag on like infinite turns. You guys go to like turn 7 or 8 pretty consistently. And then, like the obvious answer is like, oh, why don't you play Android 17? Well, they're gonna have energy up for Jiren. Like, there's no Yellow Trunks player that doesn't keep up energy for Jiren. And then even if they don't keep up energy for Jiren, they have enough blockers on the field where your Android 17 is irrelevant, just gets tapped on play. Well, Kami is a quick 3 energy answer to that. Of course, you pick up your energy anyway. Early game, it could be used to clear like a board filled with slugs and trunks and SS Annihilator because it does ignore barrier. Late game, it let me finish off my opponent. He set up 3 trunks blockers. I was going into like 7 or 8 energy. I drew for turn, slammed down my energy, slammed this guy down, cleared his whole field, and then played Cell, and the game was over from there. So yeah, that's if I were to play best of 1 with this deck, I would probably include 1 copy of Kami Global Unifier in the main. This deck's just ability to like toolbox into so many things since it can pick up 3 energy every turn. It's just unbelievably powerful. Yeah, that's the entire Gamma deck list. I had a great time playing this deck. Going to Zenkai format, this deck will obviously be strong. This deck was pretty much made with Zenkai in mind, it seems. Bandai knows exactly what they were doing when they made this deck. The Unison has Zenkai in mind. You get the combo for free with a bunch of stuff. And then, like, if you have nothing to play from your energy, nothing in back from play from your energy, like your Zenkai hand, it gives you an extra, like, resource to play with. So that's really good, too. If you have any questions about Gamma or just want to talk about Dragon Ball, definitely hit me up. I love talking to all of you guys. Love catching you guys at events and seeing you guys. Shout out to Team Fox PPG. Shout out to the new boys, the new friends I've made over at Team DBS Deck Planet. Shout out to my friends back at home who test with me. Shout out, to my girlfriend who listens to me talk about this game incessantly. Yeah, can't wait to catch you guys at the next event.